I'm learning a lot about AI, and not just the technological side of it, but rather the effects it has on humans. For example, a very obvious and concerning thought is that so far, a huge chunk of human interactions were important because of efficiency and practicality. So if you have a dog that is sick, you can take it to a animal doctor and they can check what the problem is, and perhaps they can solve it, or they can forward you to someone else who's specialized in it. And we are very close to the point in time where AI will be much better, almost perfect at predicting these things. So if you have a health condition and you go to a doctor and they tell you something about your condition, and then you go to another doctor and they tell you about your condition, they will probably say different things. It partly depends on their capabilities to see everything that has to do with your condition. Then it's also about their personal preferences, which is not the best thing if you want to get advice from a doctor. So we are very close to the point where one single AI LLM will be able to scan and measure your condition and tell you very specifically the perfect answer and solution to your condition, much better than any doctor could, because it's going to be able to analyze every single cell that has to do or could do with that could have to do your condition. So a lot of these human interactions are gonna be lost because it's better, you know, because by doing so we will avoid human mistakes. You know, lives are not gonna be lost because a human miscalculated something. You know, space missions are gonna be perfect because the AI will be able to come up with designs much better than anything before, and it will be able to calculate with every threat to the perfect amount of degree. So a lot of these human interactions is going to be lost because, in fact, I believe most of human interactions are based around practicality. And though that is vital for civilization to work, that is not the most important part of the whole of our conversations. You know, having meaningful, deep conversations with people. That's a much shorter part of the whole thing, but it's a lot more important. And so somehow we will have to manage to increase the amount of this important conversation that we have. So the world can go in two ways, right? One of them is that we get too practical and human interactions are gonna fade away to the point where it's gonna be extremely hard to come back. You know, the alternative is that people will have enough of AI, and the problem is that that part of society, which is growing extremely fast, they are also just, instead of looking for an actual solution, they just reject AI as it is, which is the dumbest thing ever. Really. Like, the amount of possibility, both in technology and in healthcare, in education, you know, AI will be improved these to a huge extent without ruining anything that has to do with us, meaning human connections, conversations, and we'll be able to, we already are curing diseases that we were fighting with for thousands of years. And with the help of AI, we can find solutions to that. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. The bad thing is how there's a lot of things to it, but mostly how we use it. So it's not regulated, and it, over the last 3 years, it started to spread so fast that now it cannot be regulated. So whether we will go down this downhill AI slope, or we will rebuild our way of connecting with each other, is not in the hands of someone or a group or a government, but instead it's in our hand. You know, everybody using AI is to some degree responsible, whether this change is going to happen or not. So that's a very interesting thing. And I believe that people, at least I really hope, that people will be intelligent enough to realize that we have to put more effort into human connections and in general to have more connections and interactions to keep society running, because otherwise they will just go insane. So I think people will realize this, and there's going to be a kind of a revolution where a lot of probably anti-AI communities are going to be created. Faith is going to flourish, probably. Religions are going to have a boom. Though, again, the problem is that most of these groups and these people, they'll just reject AI as it is instead of trying to regulate it. And it's so hard to tell what the chances are for us to pull this off, to change AI from this dangerous um, thing to something that is regulated, and it is helpful in a lot of ways. But again, it's so ironic because there is a shit ton of AI, Slack, Slap, I don't know what it's called, AI slop, that's what it is. There's a lot of bullshit AI generated bullshit on the internet. And the funny part is that we are blaming the founders for this. We are blaming Anthropic and OpenAI. That is so fucking dumb. Like, it is us who are creating these things, right? It's our stupidity that we cannot manage to have a little bit of awareness in here and just put down the phone after 1 hour of use of social media. You know, people would doom scroll on this AI slop for 5 hours and then start blaming the founders of these large language models, which is just so ridiculous. Like, sure, it wasn't well regulated from the beginning, but in our age, you cannot blame anybody really because of that, because there is such an enormous amount of innovation. It cannot be regulated. Even in the 2000s, when the internet boom came around, even back then, at the start of the internet, that was such a huge thing, such a big innovation, and it spread so fast that nobody was able to regulate it, control it, create rules. So first it spread, and then after that, over the years, we realized what the flows were and kind of tried to shape it back into the box. But you know, the black market still exists. You know, a lot of horrible things are still existing in the internet because nobody had the chance to regulate it, right? And so you really cannot expect we live in capitalism. You know, maybe if we had a communist government, we would that would be our only chance to regulate these things. But I promise you that wouldn't be better for anybody. And coming from the nature of capitalism, you know, racing, it's obvious that innovation booms, and it's obvious that those innovations cannot be regulated in a way that will put more effort into trying to avoid the negative sides and aspects of these huge technological innovations. So, yeah, I sure hope that there's gonna be a renaissance to human connections and communities, and yeah, this makes it very hard to try to create a plan for the next 10 years, you know. 20 years ago, I'm not saying that it was much better for my parents and all the other people before AI and the internet, because it wasn't. I'm very glad that I'm living in these times. But back in the days before the global, before civilization started to shift and change in a global way, before that, there was a very obvious way to live your life, which doesn't mean that it was the best, but it was, you went to school, you had to have good grades, then you were able to go to college, university, and then if you had the money, you would go to get a master. Um, if not, you would just be educated and get a good job somewhere. Sure, it wasn't that simple, but at this point in time, nowadays, you you can't even tell if being part of the education system is good or bad. Like, you really cannot tell. There are so many aspects of education, for example, that are changing rapidly, and it's really hard to tell whether it's good to go to university or not. You know, I decided to not go to university because I believe it would be a waste of time, because universities are grounded in um, predictions. You will study 4 or 5 years, maybe more, and then after that, you'll be able to get jobs around the things that you've studied. That was the idea of it, but that doesn't work today, because there are so many kids and grown-ups also who are studying in university, and currently they are studying subjects and jobs, learning jobs that are not gonna exist by the time they finish university. That is nuts. That's crazy. And going to university to study for more than 5 years is even crazier. Like, in today's society, you have no chance to try to guess what the next 6 years is gonna look like. There are so many variables that it's almost impossible to predict what's gonna happen. So the only thing that interests me is business. And going to a business university at the age of AI, when it's changing so fast, might not be the best idea. So it was either I will get the best grades in the country and try to get into the top one of the top three universities, business universities of the world. And then in those places, they are learning about AI and things that are up to date. But the rest of the universities are, in most places, they don't even teach about AI at all, which is one of the core things today when you start a business. Learning how to interpret AI into the business model. That's what I base my business on right now. Helping business owners building, implement AI. So I see more possibility in trying to create my own business, both in learning a lot more from firsthand, getting real life experiences regarding to business, such as communication, time management in general, managing people. So that's what I'm gonna do instead of university, which is very risky, of course, extremely risky. But I believe it's not any riskier than going to university. So we're living in interesting times, and it's hard to, it feels good to fantasize about saving humanity or just some part of it. But it's getting very easy to, instead of trying to save others and help others, just focus on yourself solely. Solely. Yeah. So, for example, the government in my country, here in Hungary, I think it sucks. Those are not the people I want to see holding charge of a whole country. And so instead of thinking about how I can change that and get better people up there, perhaps go there myself, the first thought that comes to my mind is just, I'm gonna leave, I'll just live in another country. So it's becoming a lot easier to care for yourself only. And it's not a bad thing, so it would be a lot worse if I decided to settle down here and live in a country with a bad government than to care more about my family and the condition of my family and our circumstances regarding to the country and the education system and healthcare system, and putting those above the, I'll stay here because I'm Hungarian and I would move to another country with better education and healthcare and etc. So we are living in interesting times, and it's hard to predict anything. But this also means that now people have a chance to chase their dreams. Because if you wanted to be a content creator and you just wanted to travel the world, perhaps you have a better chance of making a living out of that than to go to a university and get a job that sucks. It's so interesting. Like, genuinely, we live in the times where it has never been easier to try new things and chase your dreams, whatever it is. Open up a shop, start creating content, start a business. It's never been easier to start a business than it is today. It's crazy. So the amount of possibilities we have in this world right now is just incomprehensible. And despite that, most people are just, it's almost like they're not aware of it, which is, I don't understand. Like, this is the chance of the people to take bigger risks than ever before and experiment with life. And most of them are just staying home watching AI slop. So there is gonna be a huge gap between the people who will learn to use AI and learn to kind of predict the future, and the people who won't, and the people who are just complaining about AI instead of using it better or doing anything about the problems it creates. There has always been a gap between these two groups of people, but I'm pretty sure that at this point it's going to be more obvious than ever before. Somewhere along in the future, there's going to be a point where hopefully we will get there as a civilization, but there's going to be a point where we will have the chance to implement artificial intelligence and other forms of machines into our own biological body and system. And I'm really curious about how that will look like. I don't know if I will live long enough to see that, but that is going to be the first and most important shift in our evolution, because that's going to be the point where basically we will become two species. One of them will implement machines and AI and become a hybrid, and the other group will decide to stay biological. So we will see. I'm trying to make a business until it's so easy to do all these things, marketing, social media, and starting a business in general with AI tools. I'll try to get a business work. That's what the next 5 years is going to be about. I'll start a bunch of businesses if I have to, only one at a time, but I'll start again and again and again until I have a business that works, that runs, and that I'm proud of. And then from there, I'm just gonna focus on that only. I don't see any value in university anymore. So I will just go out and seek growing and experiences and whatever I find valuable in this role. Yeah. Yeah. We just have to learn to be grateful for the stuff we have. That's the best thing we can do in any point of our history. So I will try to do that now as well. And I will try to encourage people to do that. That's what I want to do. I want to give people direction and advice. And kind of help them find their place in the world. Because for a long time, I didn't. I still don't, kind of. I'm still searching for my world. But I've realized recently how many people are lost. And after kind of figuring out the answer for myself, I feel like I can share this with the world, because this is a timeless thing, you know. People always need it and will always need this until we can be considered a human species. Because when we start to implement AI, a lot of things will change. You know, we won't be able to have conversations really, because all the knowledge is going to be uploaded in our mind. And you know, there will be no points of arguing, because the truth is going to be general, which is going to be an extremely dangerous thing to do. Or we will all have our separate AIs that will simply amplify our ways of thinking, which is again not the best thing. Not the best thing to do. So we will see. We will see how it goes. That's it. That was the result of the morning brainstorm. Peace.